Well, salutations, fellow vidiots. Welcome back to yet another episode of that full moon madness, baby. It's been a long time since we did one of these. I've been having a great time getting back in the swing of it with the full moon live discussions. We've got several of those under our belt, lots of fun ones planned for the very near future. But it's high time we got back on the horse and started putting some edited content back out there. So I've got quite the lineup for you guys this summer. It's going to kind of shake off the rust a little bit so that come the fall we can start diving into some major franchises like we planned. But that doesn't mean that in this wave we aren't going to hit some monumental films in the Full Moon back catalog, specifically like proto Full Moon stuff from Empire and the Charlie Band production days and stuff like that. So to that end, I thought it only fitting to mark our return with film number 1 in the Full Moon numbered film list. It is the first proper horror film that Charlie Band ever produced, at least as far as I'm aware, and that is Mansion of the Doomed. Absolutely fucking loved this film. So hopefully in the next few minutes here we can impress upon you why and encourage you to get out there and check it out yourself. Let's take a look. Mansion of the Doomed was written by Frank Ray Pirelli and directed by Michael Pataki, who some of you may well know as, I believe it's Dr. Hoffman from Halloween 4, among many others, screen credits. It was produced by Charles Band. I believe it was his first proper film, or proper horror film anyway, that he produced. I think the only other film he produced before this was Last Foxtrot in Burbank, I believe it's called. Anyway, it stars Richard Basehart, Gloria Graham, Trish Stewart, and Lance Henriksen, among others. It had cinematography by Andrew Davis and music by Robert O'Ragland. It was released initially on October 1st of 1976, and it runs a cool 85 minutes. Basic gist of Mansion of the Doomed is Dr. Leonard Cheney, played by Richard Basehart, is in, the midst of this frantic quest to try and restore his daughter's eyesight, which was lost as a result of a car accident that they were involved in. Prior to this accident, he'd already been working as part of this panel of doctors in an effort to, find a solution for blindness and restore people's eyesight anyways. Other people had brought up the idea of, utilizing this European doctor's, method or theory that there could be a way to transplant an eyeball from one, patient to another as long as both patients were alive. And Dr. Cheney is absolutely opposed to this, but with, the recent development of his own daughter going blind, he maybe takes another pass over that idea, so to speak. And pretty much starting with her boyfriend, who is a fellow doctor on this panel, he starts abducting people and, removing their eyeballs and transplanting them into his daughter. This works great, at least for a time. She gets her eyesight back. She kind of goes about trying to live her life normally again. Unfortunately, though, it is temporary and she loses her eyesight once again. Worse yet, it turns out that each, successive time that they perform this procedure, she actually retains her eyesight for progressively shorter periods of time. Naturally, this frustrates the shit out of her father. He's determined nonetheless, so he just keeps on abducting people and extracting their eyes and transplanting them into his daughter, regardless of the fact that it's slowly building up all this crazy scar tissue around her eye sockets, or the fact that he's got these people piling up in his basement dungeon because he refuses to kill any of them. He's convinced that once he figures this out, he can give them all eyeballs again. So it's basically your classic case of the most terrible things being done with the best of intentions. As you can imagine, this slowly but surely gets progressively fucking out of hand and eventually sends us hurtling into quite a hair-raising climax. Overall, I really have nothing bad that I can say about this film. I mean, it's pretty perfectly paced. It's got that dreamy 70s, oddball horror vibe to it. Everybody on the principal cast delivers an absolutely impeccable performance. The effects are done really well. They mix what I assume is real autopsy footage or real surgical footage of people dissecting eyeballs with practical effects. and it has pretty glorious results. The prosthetics they did for all the people to, wear after they had their eyes removed look pretty legit, especially considering it was 1976. They're a little bulky, but not too bulky that they still can't act through them. Lance Henriksen especially does an amazing job of it. The way the character of Dr. Cheney is portrayed and Richard Basehart's performance portraying him adds a really cool element to the movie because, he's a legitimately good dude, and that makes all of this sinister shit that's taking place all the more sinister because he fully intends on reversing it, or at least he's convinced that he's going to be able to. So at the end of the day, he plans on, eventually fixing these people, at least in his own mind, and he has absolutely no intention of them dying. Like, even when they die through sort of natural causes as a result of these procedures and being locked in a basement dungeon, he's kind of bummed about it. And that just adds another layer to the movie that wouldn't be there if he was just your sort of stock B-movie mad scientist. Outside of the characters and the effects, the music is also pretty prominent in this film. Definitely not what I would consider iconic, but it certainly fits, the tone of the movie and enhances the proceedings without being distracting, which is always a nice sort of touch with these older 70s flicks. Sometimes those soundtracks be stoinking a little bit, and they're a little bit too heavy in the mix, so it's distracting from the film. But this one balances it out pretty well, and as I said, the soundtrack itself isn't bad. Man, that's going down smooth tonight. This was just meant to be, baby. Anyway, there's not too much else I can think of to say to try to sell you on Mansion of the Doomed. It kind of speaks for itself, really. I mean, it's just a solid late 70s little horror flick. I easily could have seen watching this repeatedly in the drive-in back in the day. It's just a lot of fun. In terms of Full Moon's legacy and everything like that, it's historic for a couple of different reasons. Not only is it one of the earliest examples of Charlie Band delving into the world of feature films, but it also showcases a similar brand of sort of weird, twisted, science-based horror that Full Moon would later go on to be known for. I mean, people fucking around with eyeballs is not unheard of in the Full Moon catalog. See Killer Eye for a great example of that. So I find it infinitely charming that this was one of the first things he dabbled in, and then it went on to be such an obvious influence in his greater, legacy. I'd wager this being one of his earlier films is not the only reason it has ended up as number one on the Full Moon numbered film list. That's probably not going to autofocus for us, but you get what I'm saying. Also, if you're a fan of Lance Henriksen from any of his many film appearances, this is a great example of an early Lance appearance where he's actually in the movie. He's not just sort of there. He's a prominent fixture throughout the entire thing. I would wager that he does a good job of humanizing the sort of victims or the casualties of the collateral damage that results from this guy's insane quest to restore his daughter's eyesight. Overall, just a fantastic film on many levels, whether you're a Full Moon fan or not. Now, in terms of this release, this is a relatively recent release from Full Moon. I think it came out tail end of last year at the earliest, or earlier in this year. It was on my list of things to grab immediately when it came out. I think I was a couple months behind, but I got it and I'm happy that I did. It's uncut and remastered and restored and all that good stuff from the original 35mm negative. It looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it is crisp as shit. The audio quality is fantastic. The only thing that I have to really gripe about is the fact that they included literally no special features on this release. I think it might have some random Full Moon trailers, but it doesn't even have the original trailer for the movie, if I remember right. I had to source that one off of something else, and then it was garbage quality. So part of the edit that I used in this came from another dude that I will likely credit at the bottom of the screen right here. He made like a fan-made trailer that was much better quality than the one that was included on the other disc that I used, but yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't have been anything to grab a quick interview with Lance. If he could do all this fucking random Bigfoot movies, I'm pretty sure he's got time to, give 10 minutes to Charles Band. Would have been nice to have a commentary track, or at least some sort of a little featurette where Charles talked about his history producing these kind of films before he started making his own. I mean, there's lots of ways they could have taken it with special features, and instead they just went for the bare bones approach. I mean, this has less special features on it than the standard DVD release of fucking Doll Man, you know. So that's a bit of a bummer. Definitely a point taken away from it for that. But overall, happy that I purchased it. Happy that I watched it. Will definitely be in my regular rotation when it comes to proto full moon films. All the stuff from the 70s and the 80s. I would say where I do rank this in the best of like pre-full moon Charles Band stuff, it would be right there with Tourist Trap and The Daytime Ended, which will be coming up later in this wave, so look forward to that. That does it, guys. We have risen from the fucking ashes with Full Moon film #1. You guys should be able to check this out on Tubi, on the Full Moon streaming service, most likely on Amazon Prime as well. I think it's like $16 for the Blu-ray release, and like, I don't know, I think they raised the prices in my downtime here. So it might be like $12 for the regular DVD release of these remastered films now. I could be wrong. I will check that and put it on the screen as well. But get out there and check it out. You know, if you're a fan of like vintage 70s horror, if you're a fan of Charles Band, if you're a fan of Full Moon, on any level, if you're a horror fan, you need to see this shit, because Mansion of the Dune is a quality creep fest, baby. In any case, I have been Mosley, you've been a bunch of sexy beasts, and this has been yet another episode of that motherfucking Full Moon Madness, baby. Glad to be back, going right into our next review right now, so lots more coming down the pipe for you guys. We'll see you back here very soon.